Clara booked the old house for a weekend escape. A writer's retreat, she told herself. Something rustic, removed from the static of city life. The listing had called it Whisper Hollow, a historic countryside getaway, filled with cozy pictures of crooked bookshelves, a clawfoot tub, and ivy-covered windows, perfect for a little inspiration. But when she arrived, the charm wilted under the late autumn sky. The house leaned uneasily against itself, its timbers groaning in the breeze, as though exhausted from holding secrets. The windows were fogged with condensation from the inside. The driveway ended in mud. The host wasn't there to greet her. Only a key in an envelope, taped to the front door. In ballpoint pen, scrawled in jagged loops, "Welcome, Clara. Enjoy your stay. Upstairs under renovation. Please don't enter." No signature. Inside, the air was heavy. Not dusty exactly, just dense, like the house had been sealed too long. The lights flickered as she walked through, each room oddly staged. Family portraits with the faces scratched out. Furniture arranged in ways that made no ergonomic sense. Chairs facing dark corners, a table with only one place setting despite 4 seats. She ignored it. Writers noticed too much, she told herself. Overactive imagination. That night, it started. She was 3 pages into her journal when she first heard it. A faint scratching. At first, it seemed like wind in the walls. Then it repeated. Rhythmic. Precise. Scratch, scratch, scratch. She froze. The sound was directly overhead. But the upstairs was locked. Clara tiptoed down the hall, every floorboard announcing her movement with a groan. Her phone's flashlight painted shadows that leaned when she didn't. She reached the stairwell. The door was shut. The same note still fluttered on it, taped hastily, unsafe. Do not enter. The scratching stopped. Then came the knock, slow from the other side. She couldn't move. Her breath caught, and then a whisper muffled through the door, but close, so close, hissed just one word, closer. Clara didn't move. The door was still. No more knocks. No whisper. Just silence, deeper than before, as if the house itself were holding its breath. She backed away slowly, one step at a time, until she reached the hallway's end. The bedroom door clicked shut behind her like it had been waiting to. She locked it. Her pulse was a dull roar in her ears. She sat on the edge of the bed and tried to write it off. A draft. An animal. Old houses made noise. That whisper? Her imagination, surely her mind filling in the blanks. She lay back and stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours. Sleep hovered but never landed. The silence pressed down harder. Then, just before dawn, came the thump. Not a soft bump or tap. This was heavy, like something fell or was dropped. Right above her bed. She bolted upright, heart in her throat. The light was still off, but something was different. She could feel it. A presence. The kind that makes the skin on your arms lift as if being watched from behind. Clara turned the flashlight on and swept the room. Empty. Then she noticed the ceiling. A fine crack now ran across the plaster, fresh and white like a newly healed scar. Dust flaked down from it. She didn't sleep. She didn't even blink for long. In the morning, Clara called the host. No answer. Straight to voicemail. She left a message. Hi, sorry to bother you, just something strange last night. Noises from upstairs. I thought the space was empty. She ended the call without saying more. She didn't want to sound crazy. Not yet. With sunlight, the fear dulled to unease. She made coffee, tried to focus on her writing, though every creak from the walls pulled her back into a crouch of nerves. By afternoon, she couldn't help herself. She approached the stairwell again. The door looked older in the daylight, the kind of wood that absorbs sound. The keyhole was an old-fashioned, long oval type. She knelt and peeked through. Blackness, but something moved in the dark. A pale, milky eye, wide and lidless, snapped into view on the other side of the keyhole. Clara recoiled with a scream and fell backwards, her head striking the wall behind her. When she came to, the sun had gone. Her phone lay beside her, screen shattered. The stairwell door was wide open, and a new note, freshly written and nailed into the wood where the old one had been, read, "You looked?" Clara scrambled backward down the hall, heels slipping on the floorboards. The door at the end, her bedroom, was closed again, but she didn't trust it. Nothing felt real. Her hands trembled as she stared at the stairwell, now yawning open like a black wound in the house. The stairs beyond it curved upward into thick, unnatural dark. No dust stirred. No cobwebs. It looked used. Lived in. She crawled to her feet and grabbed her phone. The screen was cracked beyond use. No signal anyway. Not out here. The note on the door was nailed in with something that looked like a bone fragment, sharpened to a point. She didn't check too closely. You looked. She had. And something had looked back. She grabbed her bag, keys, and coat. She was leaving. No matter what the listing said, she'd call a rideshare from the road if she had to. But when she pulled the front door open, it was night again. Clara blinked. Had she really been unconscious that long? The stars above were wrong, not in the wrong place, but wrong in shape. Patterns she didn't recognize, constellations bent into sigils. And the sky, it wasn't just dark. It was hollow. A color deeper than black, like something had drained the sky of all its light and left the husk behind. Clara shut the door. Hard. She turned back toward the stairwell. It was closed again. No sound, no wind. Just shut. Neat. As if it had never opened. No note on it. No cracks in the ceiling. She stood there for a long time, chest heaving. Her thoughts scattered. Her sense of time evaporating like heat into the floor. Then she heard it again. Drag, drag, drag. Something shifting above her. She screamed and slammed her fists into the stairwell door, then twisted the knob and ripped it open. The stairwell was empty, quiet, dusty, back to normal. But something was different. Her suitcase, the one she had packed before trying to leave, was now at the top of the stairs. Open, clothes neatly folded, and sitting right on top was a sheet of yellowing paper. One word written in ink that shimmered like oil. Stay. Clara stood at the bottom of the stairs, staring upward. Her suitcase sat like bait at the top step, perfectly arranged, unnaturally tidy. The paper on top stay hadn't moved, though the hallway was now trembling faintly, as if the house were breathing around her. She didn't want to go up, but something pulled. Not physically, no hands or force, but a gentle, constant pressure in her skull, like curiosity stretched too far, or the echo of a forgotten memory brushing the edge of her mind. She should run, but her feet took the first step. Each stair let out a soft creak, not of wood, but of something beneath it, like old sinew being pressed. The banister was strangely warm to the touch. When she reached the landing, the upstairs hallway was dark, except for one door slightly ajar, light flickering inside. Her suitcase was in front of that door, no longer open, no longer folded, now filled with things she didn't own. A child's doll with missing eyes, a photograph of her asleep in bed, in this house, a spool of human hair, her birth certificate torn into quarters, her throat closed, but she couldn't scream. She shoved the suitcase aside and slowly pushed the door open. The room was wrong. The dimensions felt distorted, like the walls weren't quite parallel, the angles slightly too wide or too narrow. No corners. The entire room bent, subtly but unmistakably, like it had been designed for something else entirely. No furniture, no windows. But there was a mirror, tall, Victorian, with an oval frame made of blackwood. It didn't reflect her. Not fully. In the mirror, her face was warped, eyes too wide, mouth too long. Her reflection smiled when she didn't. She stepped closer. The reflection didn't mimic. It stood still, watching. Then it blinked. Clara stumbled back, heart pounding. The reflection stepped forward, pressed its hand against the glass, and whispered, though no lips moved, "Let me in." She turned to run, but the door was gone. Only wall behind her. She was trapped in the room with no corners. And her reflection had begun to breathe. Clara pressed her palms to the wall where the door had been, slapping, pounding, screaming. Nothing. Smooth, cold wood. No seams, no knob, no escape. Behind her, the mirror groaned softly, as if under pressure. She turned, heart racing, breath ragged. The reflection was no longer mimicking. It was moving independently. It tilted its head, the smile gone now, replaced with a blank expression, as if disappointed. Then it began to mimic again, but not her current movements. It showed Clara curled on the floor, sobbing, rocking gently. A moment that hadn't happened yet. She stepped toward the glass, trembling. "What do you want?" she asked. Her reflection mouthed something, but no sound came, just the shape of a word, over and over. Clara leaned closer, trying to read its lips. The word was home. Suddenly, the reflection reached out, fingers pushing through the surface of the mirror like water. The hand was pale and bloated, fingers too long, nails split and black. Clara backed away, but the hand reached farther, touching the warped floor, pulling itself forward. A second hand emerged. Then a face, her face, but not. Its skin had a sheen, slick and wet like something drowned. It dragged itself halfway out, glass bending like elastic. It looked right at her and smiled with too many teeth. Clara screamed and ran to the corner, but there were no corners. The room tilted, the floor slanting beneath her. The mirror version of her laughed silently and pointed. Behind Clara, a new mirror had formed on the opposite wall, identical and smooth. From it, another figure stepped forward. This one crawling, jointless, its limbs bending in angles that made her stomach churn. She was surrounded, her own face in one mirror, something worse in the other. The first figure spoke again, its voice finally piercing the room, thick and ancient. "You invited us." The door reappeared behind her, just for a moment, creaking open with impossible speed. She didn't think. She ran through it, slamming it shut behind her. She was back in the hallway, but her suitcase was gone, and she could still hear breathing behind the door, breathing that matched her own, perfectly. Clara staggered down the hallway, legs shaking, chest tight. The air upstairs was thicker now, humid, pulsing like something inside the walls was alive and watching her move. She passed the bathroom door, it clicked open a crack as she neared. She didn't touch it. She didn't have to. It wanted her attention. A soft creak echoed behind her. She spun, nothing. Then, from the bathroom, a whisper. Not a word. Just her name. Clara. It wasn't her voice. It wasn't anyone's voice. It sounded like it came from inside her own throat. She backed away slowly, careful not to blink. Every door in the hallway had shifted slightly open now. Just an inch. Just enough to show blackness. Just enough to listen. As she passed the third one, the doorknob turned. She froze. Something was breathing on the other side, short, wet breaths like a dog panting through a hole in the wall. A smell hit her, salt and rot. She ran. The stairs were at the end of the hall, but the hallway felt longer now, stretched like the house didn't want to let her go. Behind her, doors began slamming open one by one. Bang, bang, bang. Shadows spilled from each, crawling along the floor like smoke. She made it to the top stair and turned to look. Bad mistake. In the hallway stood a tall shape, thin, boneless, its face hidden by a sheet of its own stretched skin. It had no mouth, no nose. Just two deep sockets where eyes should have been, and they dripped with something alive. It stepped toward her, and every floorboard it touched turned black. Clara turned and threw herself down the stairs, stumbling, landing hard. Pain flared in her ribs. She dragged herself into the living room, slammed the door shut, locked it. Silence. Her breath caught. Then a knock. Behind her. Not at the front door, at the fireplace. It came again. Slow. Hollow. The same knock from the stairwell door. She backed away, heart hammering, when the fireplace began to bleed. Not fire. Not soot. Ink. It poured out in ribbons, thick and dark, crawling across the floor toward her like tendrils. In the flow, something floated. A photograph. She picked it up with shaking hands. It was of her, sitting in the living room. Behind her in the photo, the thing with the skin face smiled. It was already in the room. Clara dropped the photo and staggered back, slamming into the bookshelf. The picture landed face up, ink spreading from it like veins across the floor. She didn't look behind her. She didn't have to. The air changed. It thickened with breath that wasn't hers. The thing was near. She dove into the kitchen, slammed the door, turned the lock, then froze. There was already someone inside. A figure sat at the table, back to her, perfectly still. Dressed like her. Hair like hers. Something cold curled in Clara's spine. She whispered, "Who are you?" The figure didn't move. She edged closer, unsure which terrified her more, that it would answer or that it wouldn't. Then it spoke in her voice, but cracked, brittle like wind-blown glass. "You let me in." It turned its head, not all the way, not human movement. Just enough to show its face wasn't finished. Skin folded over an empty mouth. Eye sockets unformed. It stood, slowly, jerking, like a puppet learning how. "You made a place for me," it said. Clara bolted out of the kitchen, tripping over the rug, crawling to her feet. Every light in the house was off now. The walls groaned with shifting weight. From upstairs came the sounds of footsteps, too many, circling like wolves. Doors slammed, not one, not two. All of them. At once. She grabbed a lamp and smashed it against the front door window with behind it. No glass. No exit. The house was folding in. She ran down the hall, back to her bedroom, the only place that still felt real. She locked the door, turned to the bed, and screamed. Someone was already in it. Her. Asleep. Peaceful. Breathing softly. The blankets rose and fell in rhythm. She watched herself roll slightly, murmuring in her sleep. Her sleeping self whispered, "Don't wake me." Clara backed into the corner. Her phone dead. Her name forgotten. Clara pressed herself into the corner, watching her sleeping double breathe. The sound was wrong, too regular, like a metronome set just a beat off. The body in the bed shifted again, curling into a fetal position. It whispered, "Don't wake me," once more, but now the voice was male. Lower. Wet. Clara turned and tried the door. Still locked. She hadn't touched it since slamming it shut, but now the key was gone. In its place, carved deep into the wood, was a sentence, "She woke me." Something scratched from inside the closet. A long, slow draw of nails on wood. Clara's breath caught. She backed toward the far wall, but it moved. It literally moved, rippling like the surface of a pond. Her reflection stood up again in it, not like glass, but like it had been waiting beneath the surface all along. It mirrored her this time, but with a delay half a second off. As if deciding whether to follow. Its expression twitched, cracked into a smile that hurt to look at. Clara shouted, "What are you? What do you want?" The mirror whispered, not with sound, but directly into her thoughts, "You. You brought us shape." Her skin itched. Something slithered inside her ear, inside her, invisible but present. The closet door creaked open behind her, inch by inch. She didn't turn. Couldn't. She watched herself in the wall as the reflection tilted its head, listening. Then it opened its mouth and screamed, soundless but enormous. The closet burst open. Shadows erupted. But instead of consuming her, they swirled around, forming a hallway where the closet had been. A hallway that should not exist. It stretched into darkness, lined with doors, hundreds of them, all breathing in and out like lungs. A voice deeper than thought echoed down its impossible length, "This is where the house ends." Clara stepped forward, unwillingly. The hallway welcomed her, folding inward like a throat. Behind her, the reflection followed, and the sleeping body in the bed began to rot. Clara walked the impossible hallway, walls closing in just slightly with each step, breathing with her or despite her. The doors on either side had no handles, only holes wide enough to peek through. She passed one and couldn't help but glance. Inside was a man seated at a desk, endlessly writing on paper that fed from his mouth like a ribbon. He never blinked. Blood streamed from his eyes. She moved on. The next door showed a girl curled in a cage made of mirrors, screaming soundlessly, each reflection screaming slightly differently. Another door revealed a child's bedroom. Toys danced slowly in the air. On the bed, a figure lay still, but its chest rose and fell on the wrong side. Clara began to run. The hallway groaned, stretching downward. The air changed. She realized she was no longer in the house. But below it, something far beneath the foundation, a place never meant to be seen. She stopped when she saw the last door. Larger, breathing slower, waiting. It had a doorknob, black and slick like an eye. She touched it and the hallway fell silent. Inside was a vast chamber, walls lost in darkness. Dozens, no, hundreds of people stood perfectly still. Their faces were blank, their mouths sewn shut. She recognized one, then another. From photos, from old memories, from herself. Variations, Clara figures, different ages, hair lengths, expressions. All frozen, all watching. In the center was a mirror taller than any she'd seen. In it, the Clara from before, asleep in the bed, sat cross-legged, smiling. She looked up. "You're late," she said. Clara shook. "What is this? What are they?" The mirrored Clara stood and reached out. "Guests. Just like you. You were never the first. Only the latest reflection." The figures began to move, stepping forward in perfect unison. Clara turned to run, but the door was gone. Her reflection walked toward her now, arms wide, mouth stretching open. Time to join. The room swallowed her scream. Clara fell through darkness. Time fractured. When she opened her eyes, she was back in the room with no corners. The mirror stood empty. Her breath was hers barely. She was alone. Or so she thought. From the shadows, a whisper, "You stayed." The reflection wasn't behind the glass anymore, it was inside her. In her mind, twisting memories until they bled. The house had taken her shape, hollowed her out, made her the guest who never leaves. Outside, the sun rose on Whisper Hollow, empty but waiting. The listing refreshed online, new photos. New guest. new screams echoing through the walls. Somewhere, a knock. Slow. Deliberate. Clara smiled, but no one was there. Closer, she whispered. And the house smiled back.